Hey, what's going on, leaders? Aaron Bolton here. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Leadership Lockdown. I really appreciate it. And if you like this video, consider giving it a thumbs up. If it's your thing, if you want to subscribe, maybe get notified, then go ahead and click subscribe and hit that little bell right next to it. Do you mind if I intro it and
No,
jump right in?
Good
Awesome.
to go.
Very good. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode here of Leadership Lockdown. I'm Aaron Bolton, and I'm very happy, very excited to introduce this guest, the guest that we have today. He is one of the most down-to-earth, real people I've had the pleasure of meeting and get to know. His name is Mr. Arlin Sorensen. He is the VP of Ecosystem Evangelism at ConnectWise, and he's also the author of the daily newsletter called Thoughts from the Farm. How you doing, Arlin?
I'm doing great, Aaron. Good to be with you.
Great. I'm very happy that you're here. I know we were just talking. I want to jump back into some of the things that we were talking about before. Actually, let's do that now. We were just talking about, after post-COVID, right? I brought up, if we ever get back to normal, and you said, yeah, we're not. And I appreciate that because that's honesty. What do you see? What do you see not getting back to normal?
Well, I think there'll be changes in a lot of areas that won't go back to normal. It's amazing that we haven't had an incident like this, for the last 100 years, really,
Right.
at this level. But we've learned so much that we can do with technology now that we've been forced to do it, that we kind of were toying with and playing with around the edges. But now for sure, we know we can accomplish what we need to in a lot of areas that we were sending trucks and people and spending a lot of money that we won't have to spend to serve customers in a good way going forward. We're going to have to build some new habits around how we interact, when we are together, because this is not going away anytime soon, and we're going to have to adjust for the long haul. And, so I know everybody wants us to go back to work May 1st and just forget that it ever happened, but that's not reality, and it certainly can't happen that way, or we'll end up worse off than we are today.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was saying earlier how it would be for it to go back to normal the way it was before. That would be almost more absurd, than not. And even through bad things, you learn. You learn like you were saying, some shortcuts to use. You learn more about yourself, and I think this is teaching so many people things about themselves they never knew. You're on a farm, not just grew up on a farm. You live on a farm. And it's a working farm. I grew up on a farm, not as working. It was self-working, right? So we planted our own. The field was 75 yards by 75 yards, and we had vegetables that my brother and I, with my grandmother, my grandfather, and my father, went out there and we picked those vegetables. We harvested, and I'm very thankful for that, because that put a steel in me early, right?
Yeah,
and I recognize that as a blessing. It really is. We've been through in America, in the world, really, let's just say America, a quiet period, a sleeping period where we haven't been really tested, and this is really testing us. And you get to learn about more about yourself. So when you learn about yourself, you change for the positive. Why would you want to go back? We should, not that it's going to be bad, but we should look for it being different, better, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we've had so much more time for relationships, with our families and with one another. And yeah, we'd had to learn how to connect in different ways, maybe than we were, 2 months ago. But we can do a lot together. And so change is always hard, no matter what it is. But we're going to have to adapt and make some changes that are going to last for the long haul.
Awesome. So before we go any further, could you do me a favor? Can you do us all a favor? Kind of give us a rundown, kind of, where you came from. You have a very interesting story, and from someone on a farm and then in technology, and then running that technology company from the farm. I think it's a really cool story. So if you can give us some background, that'd be great.
Sure. Grew up in Iowa, rural Iowa, and went to Iowa State University, got a degree in farm operations, went home to join the family operation, and farmed with my dad and brother for a few years. In 1982, I fell in love with an Apple II Plus computer and used it to do my farm accounting and some other farm-related types of activities. And people, my neighbors, got interested, and I would help them go buy a computer and bring it back and help them set it up and teach them how to use it. And a few years into that, I decided, if I'm going to do this, I just will turn it into a small business. So started a company in 1985 where we sold farm accounting systems, and that grew, and we switched into more Main Street business and those kind of things. And I started a company that became Heartland Technology Solutions. From 95 till 2012, when we sold it, we grew to 100 folks and we had 7 offices across 5 states, and really focused on rural small business kinds of clients. Along that journey, Y2K came, and in 2000, I had scaled up because I thought we were going to have the greatest opportunity in history with all the things related to Y2K, and Y2K missed Iowa completely. I had a staff of people with no work, and so we talked about it as a team. And one of my employees said we should talk to some other people in this business and see if we're just too stupid to figure it out, or if there's really nothing going on. So we called a few folks, around Iowa, and met together for a day in Des Moines and talked about business. And that was the start of our HTG peer groups. It was really, really all about us trying to figure out how we could, navigate the market and what was happening. And we learned a ton that day. So we decided to continue to meet. And, the thing that really helped me decide, Aaron, was I was way overstaffed, and there was not going to be a Y2K flood of business. So because of that, I was able to make, some very painful adjustments to our business and let some folks go. But had I not had that feedback and been wondering, if it was still coming, I probably would have hung on to those folks, and it very well could have really done some serious damage. So HTG was a group we designed just for our own benefit, basically, and that turned into a group of 12 companies that we met quarterly for 5 years. And when I would go to events, I'd have all these folks come up to me and say, I want into your group. I want to be part of this peer group thing. And I kept saying, no, 12's all that I can deal with. And so we started a wait list, and, pretty soon in 2006, I had 20-some companies on a waiting list, and said, well, let's see if we can get a second group going and if it'll stick. And then we started a third group. And in 2007, we went from 3 groups to 10 groups. And in 2008, we went to 20 groups. And at that point, I figured out that we had a lot of potential there, and we started up a real business to drive peer-to-peer interaction to help people grow their companies. And today that has become part of the IT Nation at ConnectWise. So I sold my IT company in 2012. I sold the peer group organization in 2018, and I work for ConnectWise today on their strategy team, helping partners grow their IT companies. So it's been quite a journey. I've still got a precision ag business back on the farm that Adam Gittens runs for me, where we do all kinds of precision technologies for farmers, drones and GPS technologies and things like that, and a couple other little businesses that I have on the farm. But it's been a real learning journey, and I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, so that's where I got all my gray hair. And that's the stuff you don't forget. The things you make mistakes about yourself, you just don't forget.
Awesome. Very cool. So yeah, it was funny, just going back just a second, just a thought in my head. I never looked at it from Y2K from the perspective of business owners looking to not necessarily capitalize off of it, but they have a need, they have a product or a service that would help mitigate any of the issues that would happen with, for instance, Y2K. And if the fact that it didn't hit hard and as everyone was scared that it would, I mean, globally, that's great.
Yeah.
But on a micro level, I never really thought about those companies that would be, affected negatively if it didn't happen, right?
Yeah.
So, wow, that's pretty interesting. So the peer group is still going on in ConnectWise, correct?
Correct. Called Evolve today, and we serve about 700 companies globally today.
That's amazing. So what were, let's say, the biggest challenges, maybe top 2, 3 biggest challenges that you had before COVID, when it came to your role or when it came to the peer groups?
Well, what I thought were challenges then I've discovered since I've gotten on the other side of COVID, they really weren't as big a challenges as I thought they were. They were more excuses than anything. I thought I was really busy, and I've learned that this virtual stuff, I'm busier now than I was before. And
Yes.
A lot of it is there's more interaction going on now than there was before.
Mm-hmm.
You take time to connect and have conversation. And so, a lot of it was mindset and mentality. Certainly, we had all the normal staff, finding great people and having enough funding to scale the way we wanted to and all those things. But the reality is that, it all comes down to relationships. And that's one of the benefits that's really come out, I think, of this COVID-19 experience is people have gotten back to relationships, starting with their families and their marriages. But,
Mm-hmm.
When you're locked up in a house with people, you get acquainted. And there's days when, especially with small kids, I'm sure parents are challenged. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's still really good stuff. And, with clients, it's the same way. Picking up the phone and calling somebody in the old days was like, I'll just send them an email.
Right.
Today, you get on video. And
Right.
we had video, we've had it for a long time. We just weren't using it this way. So I think this has really opened up a lot of eyes and understanding of the power of the technology that we really weren't leveraging to the level we should have been.
A lot of things that you said, I've heard other people, same sentiment, yes, this is there are horrible things going on in the world, but I'm home, and yes, it's scary, it's uncertain, but I'm here with loved ones. When you're there with loved ones, you're able to cope better, right?
Absolutely.
And I mean, I'm noticing that for myself. I think it's weird to say, oh, I'm really, I'm enjoying the time. It's weird to say that because there's so many that are suffering right now. But I mean, if I'm going to be truthfully honest, there are some times during the day, yeah, there might be some frustrations, but I get to be woken up by my 2-year-old and my 7-year-old, and I get to see all the goofiness that they portray. So I'm loving it. And with it's so funny. We went all the way to text messaging, right? Past email, you just like, let me just pop a little text, not even barely any words, fully spelled out. What did we even saw at the signature line of a lot of emails were, sorry for the misspellings. I'm, emailing from my cell phone. And now it's, people are taking more time to connect. And you're right, this is a technology we've had forever. What I've noticed is, and they're connecting from home, and there's a different mindset that you have. You could be all business and get everything done professionally and correctly. But when you're home, you have a more, I guess, laid back persona, and when you're on these conversations, what I've noticed is people have been more real, because everyone's going through similar things. We're in the middle of a conversation. If my son starts screaming, yelling, I'm going to say, give me 1 second, where if that happened in like an office, they'd be like, well, what's going on there?
That's exactly right. Yeah. This morning I was on a video call, and the CEO was talking to a group of us, and his dog came in, and 2 months ago that would have been, oh my goodness, that shouldn't be happening.
Right.
Today it's like, meet the dog, right? It's part of daily life. And so what I see is, our balance had gone way too far to almost impersonal in a lot of ways, and now we have brought it back. And the trick's going to be to find that balance that's in the middle somewhere. So there's just a ton of really positive things I think that can come out of this, and a lot of it has to do with how we look at it and perceive the situation. Can't downplay the real pain that a lot of people are going through, but at the same time, there's going to be a lot of benefits that others are going to gain.
Absolutely. A quick funny story. Somebody told me that Sam DeMuling, Sam.
Oh yeah.
He was at home. Obviously they were on a conference call, like a Zoom call, and he just jumped up and ran out. He said, oh my goodness, ran right out of frame and stopped. He has ducks, and a hawk came down. He saw a hawk coming down trying to grab his ducks. So the meeting stopped, and everyone was okay with that. Because what's he going to do? What's he going to do? Just not save his ducks, So people are connecting a lot more like that. I think it's like I said, weird that it's good, So now we're in this COVID quarantine. How is what does your day-to-day look like now? Let me ask first, are you still working closely with the peer groups?
I do facilitate and manage some of the groups, but most of my time today is spent on strategic initiatives for ConnectWise. So the peer groups are kind of an arm's length away from me, still very near and dear to my heart, but we got a great team of people that are managing that. And so I get to facilitate, but I don't have to deal with all the day-to-day kinds of things anymore.
Right. So what challenges are you seeing now? And we could talk peer group. We can talk what you're seeing in your own day-to-day, or even in the tech space. So what challenges?
Yeah, the challenges that we're seeing today really is, number one challenge is just uncertainty, and that's from the individual level to the small businesses, even to the larger companies like ConnectWise. Nobody knows how long this is going to last, and that's the great equalizer, I guess, in terms of people's response. As I talk to a lot of different small business companies over the last month now, I'd say 10% of them are doing really, really well. They're in the right industries where they're serving healthcare or transportation or grocery or, some of those essential areas. IT is one of those that's doing really well. So 10% are just really, really killing it.
Right.
80% are doing well. They haven't lost ground. They've been busy. The question is, can clients pay? And we'll find that out in the next 30 to 60 days.
Right.
But on paper anyway, there's a really big group in the middle that are doing great. And then there's that 10% at the bottom that are really struggling. They were struggling before we got into COVID. COVID's kind of made it worse. And so those are the folks that are at risk. The government programs, I think, are going to be very important for small businesses to maintain their ground here. Again, it's going to all come down to how long it lasts, but for the next few months, that program, if it gets funded and the money gets out, should help these companies hang on. So, we're doing a lot of coaching around what you need to be doing today to manage your cash flow. How do you lead your people in this different environment? Because you're not having face-to-face group meetings. You got to do it by video. And what I'm finding is their owners are talking way more to their people than they were before the event. It was, we might have a meeting once a quarter. Now they're having weekly meetings and, Friday happy hours every week. It's it's really improved that communication. So, but there's certainly some pain out there in the small business space, and it's going to be really important for these federal funds to get to the right people.
Right. So, not to shift gears, but I think if we do, we can kind of circle back and talk more about the technology. I want to talk about the newsletter that you have, Thoughts from the Farm. Now, recently, and that's one reason why we started talking, saying, let's do this episode, is, you've been writing. Well, first I want to say what's so great about this newsletter. Off the bat, it's Christian focused, it's Christ focused. But it's not a sermon that's beating you over the head. It's not it's got the love, the light is there and it comes through, but it's not to the point where you're admonishing people. You're saying you need to do this. And it's a great read. It's also is very informative. You have recently been writing about the any type of crisis, or obviously with the COVID, and so if you could talk a little bit about how that came to be, because I'm not even sure how the newsletter came to be. How long has it been going on?
Well, I started writing back in 2004, and
Wow.
it came out of a small group, that we had at our church, and one of the members of the group challenged the rest of us, that we should have a daily quiet time, and the only way that would happen is if we all wrote down what we were learning and shared it together. So that's kind of how it got started, and I was doing it probably half the time. A friend came down from Canada and spent a couple weeks with me in 2006 and said, "You either got to get in or get out. This halftime stuff, that's not really good enough." So he challenged me to do it every day, and that's when I started to write. I haven't missed a day since 2008.
Wow.
So I've got 12 years of 6 days a week putting out content. My daughter now does write on Saturdays, so we're starting that legacy kind of transition. But it's just an outlet for me to basically talk about what I learned yesterday, kind of thing, and then share some things I've read from others that I think can be helpful. So when we got into the COVID kind of space, I decided that there's a whole lot of information out there about this thing, and so I try to pick things that I think are going to be helpful to people, and include a section in my daily update that's in there. So it's been a lot of pages written over the years, but I certainly enjoy doing it, and I'm very clear with people. I write it for myself. At the end of the day, it's a discipline that has changed my life in a significant way. Just every morning getting up and going through the process of writing, studying the scripture, praying and listening to God, and just letting my fingers, and people are always asking me, after you've done this for this many years, don't you run out of stuff to talk about? I don't have anything to talk about. It's what God puts in my, in my fingers that comes out every day.
That's awesome. So you write about, well, first, how therapeutic have you found it? There's got to be a level of therapy to it, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's changed my life in a lot of ways. The discipline is important. Anytime you write, you get clarity, because you have to have clarity to be able to actually type it. So it crystallizes a lot of thoughts. And it opens the door for conversation. I tell the people on my distribution list, I don't expect you to read the whole thing every day. Even I wouldn't do that. But what I do expect is, if God taps you on the shoulders on a certain day and says, "Hey, remember that email that's in your inbox? Take a look." And that's the conversations I get to have. Is people will reach out and say, "What you said today really connected with me," and I get that pretty much from a few people every day, and so that's what keeps me really going from a distribution perspective, because I know God's using it to touch people and to challenge where they're at and what they're doing.
That's fantastic. How many people are on the distribution list?
Got about 1,350 now globally. So
Wow. That's powerful. And it's, I mean, you're not marketing out there. This is just people who have heard it osmosis, and they're just coming to you. And
yeah, it's not a public thing. People say, why don't you put it on a blog site? Well, it loses something, I think, when you just publish it to the world like that. So
yeah, me too. I won't ask that question. I was definitely thinking that, but and while I was thinking that, I was thinking he had to have been asked that question before. So, definitely.
a lot.
Right. It's so cool because when you're able to, I mean, we've heard so many times, it's very important to replay your day. Right?
Yep.
A lot of times we'll make a mistake and we'll mess up, and naturally our brain does not want to remember those faults. However, that's the only way we're going to get better. We
Right.
recognize them and we correct them. And when you someone like you who has a discipline, who has built a discipline to sit there and say, all right, let me replay my day yesterday. Let me see. Have you ever come across something, that popped in your brain from the day before and just kind of made you that's like maybe painful to rethink or rewrite?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And often it's relationship based, right? It's something stupid I did at home with my bride or my kids or whatever. It happens regularly. So I don't run out of that kind of content ever.
Well, that's good. That's good. What's good about it is that I don't want to sit here and make, start comparisons, but that's why I want, that's the purpose of this show. Cause we're all going through challenges, and maybe even before, professionally in our offices, in our places of business, we might've had that opportunity, if we're going through a challenge, to seek some advice. But a lot of times people don't, because they're either embarrassed or they don't want to be looked at as if they are ignorant or they don't know. And so a lot of times they miss out on that opportunity. Well, now people are maybe going through those same challenges, brand new challenges, and they might even, now people don't have someone right there to ask. And now they might even be more hesitant because they don't want to bother. I mean, and truly, if they're going through the issues, their boss, their manager, it's uncertain. It's uncertainty. So that's why the point of this podcast is to share some of those challenges that we're having, and to not just share the challenges, but share the overcoming, how to overcome those challenges, and some advice. And that's what's so important about your newsletter, especially the ones that you sent me. So you sent me some one that you had written. I've got all three of them printed up here, but you gave advice, like business advice of for what's going on. If you can kind of go through that, because I mean, it's a wealth of knowledge, and I don't want to lose any of that. I want that people definitely to know it.
Yeah, well, I've written three really COVID related, one about managing a company through the crisis, one about leadership in the middle of a crisis, and then one specifically about cash flow, because that is the number one issue that businesses are going to face, is how do we keep the cash coming so we can keep the doors open. And there's nothing magic about the content. It's experience and things I've learned. I lived through the Y2K disaster that I created myself, basically. Went through the 2008, 2009 global financial crisis thing. And so I've been through a few. I had some early experiences in the farming operation that were very difficult as well. So, the school of hard knocks is where you don't forget
Right.
the lessons you've learned. So that's really what I shared in these articles. And, I think the key thing, especially from a leadership perspective, is we got to take care of ourselves first. And, a lot of people kind of lose sight of that. Small business owners, entrepreneurs think they're superhuman. In a lot of ways they are. They create a company, they carry that company on their back, they make it successful, but at some point they've got to rely on the people around them to be able to scale and grow. And when you get to a situation like this, you really have to trust the people around you to help you get through these difficult times. So, that's one of the key foundational things that people have to keep in mind. You're no good if you get sick. If you're unable to lead, you gotta take care of yourself first so that you can bring others along. Then you gotta trust your team, and you gotta enable them. You've got to equip them. You've got to give them the authority to act. People will step up. That's one of, I think, the good things that's going to come out of this is we're going to all discover leaders that are around us that we didn't really know were there.
Right.
And, as you're doing leadership development and the things that you're doing now, man, there's a lot of leaders out there that haven't had a chance or, weren't put in that position or maybe haven't been skilled up to a point where they could really express the talents they have. But teams are going to be critical for getting people through this thing. And we've got to learn to leverage those things. Planning then becomes critical because that as those teams come together and solve problems, they got to communicate that to the rest of the folks. And so we need to be able to create really good plans that we can actually execute and communicate so everybody on the bus can help us get to the destination. So, there's a bunch of those kind of things that I've learned the hard way. I thought I was a superhuman back in Y2K days, and I discovered I didn't know anything. But I had people on my team that did, and they challenged some of the things I were thinking, and we made some significant change that really saved the company at that time.
Yeah, one thing that I find a through line is, you write a lot about the tech industry, and obviously that's your background. But what I've noticed is a lot of the challenges from the small business owners, in the tech, you could take out technology industry and drop in any industry. And I'll tell you a quick personal example here. When I was, selling, to tech companies, to MSPs, and, it was important for me to know around about our general, history that they had before I even had the conversation with them. Generally people start their own IT company because of XYZ and whatnot. And one that I always revisited, or one common, idea was, the service manager, the tech service manager who
Right.
is running someone else's company. Right. And they're not really, but in their mind, well, the product, I run the product, that service manager. But my boss is driving a Tesla, and I've got a Hyundai. I want a Tesla. So I'm going to go out on my own. And they maybe haven't built up the business acumen, or they haven't had the opportunities to see all of those challenges. Same thing with me. I was in leadership. I was in learning and development, learning and education, corporate. And I said, you know what? I've done this. I can start my own business. And it's so funny that I quickly forgot, everything I had learned. And then it took me, a little while to sit there and realize, oh, wait, this is same challenges. I'm having to learn the whole business side of everything. And so, it's very, very transferable. You mentioned leaders stepping up, and I think that's we're seeing that a lot, especially in the medical industry. So we hear a lot about nurses and a lot about doctors, but there are a lot of other positions in hospitals that still have to be in hospital, would really never have a dangerous interaction with their job, but now just coming to work is danger. My mother, she works in admissions in a hospital down in Naples, and she was in management. And I forgot, we had a conversation. I need to follow up with her. She said that and maybe she did before, about a few months before all this, she said, I'm going to take a step back because she didn't want to have to work that hard. She's worked, single mom, she worked her tail off, as long as I know. So, but now she's going to this hospital, and where she might not be, well, she's a leader in my heart always, and she's just the person that she is. But classically, in a corporation, oh, well, she doesn't have any employees under her and all. But again, the leadership that she is showing is just listen. I talk to her so she can vent, because she needs some type of release after the day. And just some of the things that she tells me, she's not trying to brag, but I try to point out to her, Mom, that those skills, those things that you're doing are helping people when people are, she's hardcore. She came from Cuba, communist Cuba. They left in the middle of the night on an airplane to Miami. And then she grew up not knowing any English in Queens, in the 70s.
Wow.
So, yeah. So she's tough. She's tough as nails. And, so many people have come to her broken down, crying, saying, I just don't have it in me to talk to this individual, this patient. And she's now the go-to where she's, all right, let's go. And that's, one example, but that's happening all over the place, which is again, one of those weird, positives that's coming out of this. All right.
Well, and communication is probably one of the most important parts of all of us getting through this experience, right? And
absolutely,
that's another area that a lot of businesses have kind of let slide, and we've had such a good run, financially and economically and every other way that, I tell people we could be kind of sloppy in how we led our businesses because you couldn't hardly not make it work.
Right.
That's changed, and now we have to actually manage things well, but most importantly, we got to communicate and make sure that people are all aligned and on the same journey. So there's a ton of positives that are going to come out of this, and the key is going to be not to lose the lessons that we're learning here, and to make sure that we execute those going forward.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, when a business is going well, when it's doing well, it's hard to see that it would be anything but going well.
Right.
No one would ever imagine something like this would happen. And even it's no surprise, or no hidden secret or anything that so many people, whenever COVID was hitting in China and Italy and Spain, and still people, and even now in America, because we've had this sleeping period for such a long time where we don't want to admit, so many of us, that this is happening to us. This can't happen to us. It's America. But that virus, that's an enemy. This is a war, that we're an non-conventional war, where our military arm right now is CDC. This right. This is something that we're not used to at all. So we can't. I often say, frustrations only occur when expectations aren't met. And think of any time you've ever been frustrated, it's because you thought something was going to happen, whatever it was, big, small, good, bad, even, and get frustrated. So and I use that to teach. Don't really need to teach. Most times people just need to be reminded, right? But the whole point of that is, to set proper expectations and understand that, any alternatives that could happen, so you don't get frustrated. Yep. But now it's challenging, because the only expectation that we can have is not to really hold strong to any expectations about the future of COVID, and because we just don't know. So we have to find some type of peace in that.
Yeah, we aren't in control. That's one of the lessons that's going to come out of this for sure. Is a lot of us 2 or 3 months ago thought we were in control of what was going on, and it's amazing how quickly we had to learn that lesson, that we aren't in control of much of anything. And right now, all about making sure we use the tools we have to try to bring people together and keep things going.
Absolutely. Uh, so what advice or what any words of advice or anything that you can offer? I know you already have, but anything that you can offer out to anyone that's listening or anyone that's watching this right now?
Well, I'm a big believer that faith is an important part of how we address especially challenging situations. And when I was going through my biggest struggles back in the late 90s and early 2000s, I had bought into the whole idea that I can check my faith at the door when I go to work and separate that from who I am. And that was the biggest mistake of my life, actually. Thinking that I bought into the whole idea that you got to separate faith from work. And that's like ripping part of you out, right? Because it's core to who we are. And so, there's a tendency, I think, for people today to be so overwhelmed with the crisis and the change going on that they kind of forget. Not being able to go to church, that's like a big deal. And yeah, we can do the video thing, but we lose some of that community and family stuff. But we got to work at it, and so that's definitely something that I'm focused on myself and for our family is, how do we keep that community feeling, that sense of faith, family, and keep that core to how we deal with the crisis and the change that's going on. I don't know how you get through this without having some element of faith to help as a foundation to grow. Then it's all about relationships. It's about people. This is a people problem. It's a people opportunity. We have to just spend the time, make the effort, reach out, connect, and use it for the good that it can be. I've talked to people in the last month I hadn't talked to for years. And I had a classmate from my 1974 graduating class that called me out of the blue the other night. I hadn't talked to him since we graduated from high school. 46 years ago. But he saw that my mom had passed away a few weeks ago, and he wanted to call up and offer sympathy. And it was, we had a great conversation. That would have never happened, in a pre-COVID kind of environment. So we can take advantage of the situation we're in. Yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty. Nobody knows. But what we do know is that people are people. We need each other. And we need to take the time to really connect and communicate and use this as an opportunity.
That's perfect. I don't think I could even think of anything more fitting to say to add to that. That's period on that. Now with the newsletter, is that something that you give out to anyone asking, or I don't want you, because if people might be listening to this and saying, hey, I'd like to take a look at that. How would that be something you'd offer, you'd be able to put them on?
I just ask people to send me an email and to ask to join the list. That's the only requirement. There's no cost or obligation other than that. And you can tell me to quit sending it whenever you want to. But my email is Arlin, ARLIN, at arlinsorensen.com. And so if they just send me just a really short email saying, please add me, and here's who I am, and glad to add them, and they'll start getting it every morning in their inbox.
Perfect. Yeah. I could say at this point, it's going to be right down here. Your email address be right down there somewhere down under, but it'll also be in the description. The link will be in the description. Arlin, thank you so very much. Honestly, whenever I saw the message from you and you agreed to want to be on the podcast, I took a screenshot of it and I sent it to Kyle Lee. I sent it to Kyle Jackson. I sent it to like 4 of my friends. And I was like, this is awesome, just because I really do value you as a person, and I do hold you in high regard. So, and gratefully thank you so much for doing this show. I was, like I said, I was very very excited to when I saw that message come through.
Well, I'm excited to join you. I've been watching some of your work, and it's always good to have a conversation with a friend and put the word out there. So glad I could be a part of it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. And Arlin, we'll talk soon. Would you like to come back on another time?
Absolutely.
That's great.
I'll have a whole new set of lessons I've learned.
Oh, fantastic. Awesome. It would have been heartbreaking if you said, "No, I'm good. I've had enough, Aaron." Awesome.
Nope.
Guys,
Love to do it.
Thank you. See ya.